How do Major League Baseball players get selected for the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York? And what does the Hall of Fame's history reveal about the selection process? Well, for one, the process is inconsistent and imperfect, which should come as no big surprise. Let's talk about how people get picked for baseball's Hall of Fame. First of all, why is the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York? Well, that's where Abner Doubleday supposedly invented baseball in 1839, according to Al Spalding's Baseball Commission. The legend was entirely made up, but it made a good origin story, an Arthurian legend in which a Civil War hero created a new game for the North American people in upstate New York. What is true is that Major League Baseball established the world's first professional sports Hall of Fame in 1936, meaning a museum open to the public and dedicated to preserving memory of the sport's greatest athletes. From the beginning, there have been two main pathways to getting a bronze plaque in the Hall's Great Gallery. One, the Baseball Writers Association of America, BBWAA, can vote you in on its annual ballots. Two, the veterans or era committees made up of players, managers, executives, and umpires can decide you belong. They don't always get it right. Let's talk about the writers first. The Baseball Writers Association of America was founded in 1908. Its aim was to professionalize the press box and improve working conditions for its sports writers, who covered thousands of games nationwide. So imagine the sports editors from all of the major dailies, the guys doing radio interviews. They want respect for their craft, and today it has close to 400 members from across North America. Each year, the membership decides who is named baseball's most valuable player, Cy Young Award winners, Rookies of the Year, and Managers of the Year. But its most public decision is who should be allowed to enter the Baseball Hall of Fame and its gallery of immortals. To vote, one must have 10 continuous years of BBWAA membership and active membership at any time in the preceding 10. Who doesn't have a vote? That would include John Thorne, the official historian of Major League Baseball, or highly informed baseball researchers like Bill James. They don't get a vote because they don't work in sports journalism. As with any organization, one could criticize the group's demographic profile or its authority to make its decisions. But I won't do that here. Suffice it to say, the writers are a group of professional journalists who make judgments and have their own biases. On Hall of Fame ballots, the writers have up to 10 votes, and players must receive at least 75% of them. In 1936, the writers selected 5 indisputable legends: Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. Ty Cobb got the most votes, but it was not unanimous. Moving forward, some years went by without a single selection. In fact, the BBWAA selected just one player, hitting Savon Rogers Hornsby, in the years between 1940 and 1947. Similarly, the 1960s was a time of relatively few inductions, just 6 players total, and even then, you might take issue with the votes. There are other irrational patterns one can identify. The writers did not induct Mel Ott, Jimmy Fox, and Joe DiMaggio on their first ballots. They made them wait while they selected the likes of Pie Traynor, a decent third baseman, but not remotely comparable to the likes of Joe DiMaggio. The writers made Joltin' Joe wait 4 ballots before he received the requisite 75%. Where you played, who you played with, your career length, your personality type, the era, all of these factors affected writers' decisions. In 1962, baseball writers selected 2 deserving candidates, Bob Feller and Jackie Robinson, with 94 and 78% of the vote, respectively. The 2 men had an identical number of career wins above replacement, a sabermetric stat, but only one of them integrated baseball. For Robinson to have received less than 90% of the vote tells us that not all of the writers appreciated the historical significance of his career. Sometimes the writers just get it wrong, horribly wrong. And the best example I can think of is Lou Whitaker, the longtime second baseman of the Detroit Tigers, who got less than 3% of the writers' votes in 2001 during the same year his contemporaries, Dave Winfield and Kirby Puckett, each got inducted to the Hall of Fame on their first ballot. It was a historic snub, especially since Whitaker, by any sabermetric analysis, had superior career stats. But stats alone don't get you into the Hall. Personality matters enormously. Kirby Puckett had an infectious smile. He was charismatic, outgoing, and beloved by Minnesota fans and national media alike. In contrast, the introverted Lou Whitaker avoided interviews and let his play do the talking for him. Reliable consistency made Whitaker a dependable teammate, an outstanding infielder alongside Hall of Fame shortstop Alan Trammell. But Whitaker wasn't someone the writers voted for on his first ballot. What about Dave Winfield? Well, he was confident, well-spoken, and he maintained a high public profile. The writers couldn't help but notice Winfield or Puckett, and I reckon if Lou Whitaker was more of a talker, more willing to go on talk shows and tell funny stories about life in the big leagues, he probably would have wound up in Cooperstown. From its inception, the criteria for selection to the Baseball Hall of Fame has included integrity, sportsmanship, and character. Now, this is where things get very subjective indeed. Ty Cobb's hot temper and unsportsmanlike conduct did not keep him out of Cooperstown. Doctoring baseballs, a tolerated form of cheating, did not prevent Whitey Ford or Gaylord Perry from gaining induction to the Hall of Fame. Gambling scandals, however, have been treated differently. In 1921, the Commissioner of Baseball made Shoeless Joe Jackson ineligible for the Hall of Fame due to his association with gamblers, and the same fate befell Pete Rose in 1989. But their ineligibility has been controversial for multiple reasons, not least of all because there is reason to believe that, at the minimum, Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker bet on games, and manager John McGraw was involved in a bribery scandal. Up until now, I've only talked about one path to Cooperstown, which runs through the sports writers. But there's a second path, and that's the Veterans or Era Committee. In 1939, the same year the Hall of Fame held its grand opening, criticism emerged about the absence of 19th century inductees, and so an old-timers committee was hastily formed. Ultimately, the Commissioner of Baseball, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and presidents of both the National and American Leagues selected 3 players for induction. Buck Ewing, often cited as the 19th century's best catcher, Old Hoss Radburn, a dominant pitcher, and Cap Anson, pictured on the right, a frequent batting champion and the first man to collect 3,000 hits. But from the outset, the selection process was decidedly unscientific. I mean, why not induct Pud Galvin, the first pitcher to win 300 games? Or Dan Bruthers, a slugger who hit over 100 home runs in the 19th century and finished his career with the highest slugging percentage, a mark that would not be surpassed until Babe Ruth. The committee saw no character flaw in the bigoted Cap Anson, who helped solidify the regime of racial segregation during the 1880s. Between 1944 and 1946, the Old Timers Committee inducted 22 people, mostly to address a backlog of deserving candidates from the 19th and early 20th centuries. They got it right with some selections like Dan Bruthers and Rube Waddell, but they also enshrined Tommy McCarthy in 1946, who has been called the worst Hall of Famer in Cooperstown due to credentials objectively below the standard for a deserving player. Subsequent versions of the committee, the Veterans or Era committees, would include input from baseball historians and players, but even then, its decisions have elicited controversy and driven baseball fans mad. By 1971, the Hall of Fame acknowledged the need to recognize the achievements of black ball players who had been excluded from Major League Baseball due to segregation. Unsurprisingly, it inducted the best-known stars of Negro League ball, such as Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and Cool Papa Bell. Lesser-known stars, such as pitcher Ray Brown or slugger Mule Studdles, would have to wait more than 3 decades for the induction because celebrity status and name recognition matter. In our time, the ERA Committee consists of a rotating panel of 16 that includes baseball executives, media figures, and current Hall of Famers appointed each election cycle. The whole thing is opaque with respect to how appointments work, and no one knows who will sit on the committee from year to year, except that it is determined by the Hall of Fame's board of directors. In 2019, the ERA Committee inducted Harold Baines, a good player, but one of questionable credentials for baseball's highest honor. That year, the committee included Tony La Russa, who managed Baines, Pat Gillick, an executive with connections to Baines, and Jerry Reinsdorf, who owned Baines' longtime team, the Chicago White Sox. Baines got 12 of 16 committee member votes, and the selection was rightly called an embarrassment. Now, let's talk about steroids in baseball. Ever since books and congressional hearings into their use among major league players, the baseball writers have refused to induct anyone who has lied under oath to federal investigators or tested positive for banned substances after the implementation of a drug testing policy in 2004. The report by former Senator George Mitchell in 2007 presented evidence that superstars Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens used steroids, which both players vehemently denied. Other stars with Hall of Fame credentials, such as Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Manny Ramirez, and Alex Rodriguez, either admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs or tested positive for those substances. McGwire and Sosa's upbeat personalities did not help them with the writers. Both got less than 20% of the vote on their 10th and final ballots. But Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were a bit different. 7 Cy Young Awards for Clemens, a power pitcher dominant throughout his career. 7 MVP awards for Bonds. The combination of speed, power, and defense. These 2 generational talents would easily have been first ballot inductees under normal circumstances. But they were less media-friendly and refused to speak truthfully about steroids. On their 10th and final ballot in 2022, the writers inducted David Ortiz with 77% of the vote, despite the fact that he tested positive for steroids back in 2003, while Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens each received 66 and 65% of the vote, respectively. Now, this is not to say the baseball writers of America all think alike. Most of them voted yes for Bonds and Clemens. And one has to wonder how things might have been different if they had acknowledged steroid use from the outset or been friendlier or more transparent with the press, as was the case with David Ortiz. No evidence has ever surfaced of Curt Schilling using steroids, but he's conservative, outspoken, and unafraid to insult sports writers or make inflammatory remarks some would say are unbefitting the dignity of a Hall of Fame inductee. His failure to receive 75% of the vote had everything to do with his politics and confrontational personality. Now, personally, I would have voted for all 3 guys based on their baseball accomplishments. Others would disagree. The point to make is that subjective factors are hugely important. The writers have consistently overlooked guys with introverted or standoffish personalities and rewarded nice, affable guys like David Ortiz or CC Sabathia. Could a future eras committee induct Schilling, Clemens, and Bonds? Yes, it could, but it would also depend on the committee's composition, and that is something controlled by the Hall of Fame's board of directors. The process is political and not perfectly impartial. Briefly, let's talk about one current voting pattern. Generally speaking, only iconic players are elected on their first ballot. Mariano Rivera received 100% of the writers' votes. Ichiro Suzuki and Derek Jeter gained admission in 2025 with over 99% of the vote, a fact that reflects their status as global icons with star power. Selection isn't just about stats. Suzuki was the first Japanese position player in MLB, while Derek Jeter was the longtime captain of a historic franchise, the Yankees. Scott Rowland's path to induction is far more typical. He started with just 10.2% of the vote in 2018 and then gradually increased his ballot strength to 76.3 in 2023. Rowland's case illustrates the slow, steady climb some candidates experience as their credentials are assessed by the writers. Conversely, weak ballots have allowed borderline candidates to make gains. In short, your era, your timing, it matters. Most players in the Baseball Hall of Fame deserve their bronze plaque, even if it can be said that the selection process is inconsistent, subjective, and shaped by politics. Just to be considered for induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame means you were great, truly great. That is, you were among a tiny fraction of all professional baseball players. In my lifetime, I expect to see the era's committee let in a few of the players who use steroids. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe seem likely to have a plaque at some point in the future. So what do you think about the selection process, and what did I get wrong or overlook? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.